Hey, this is Pamela Riemenschneider. I'm the retail editor for Blue Book Services, and this is the Produce Reporter Week in Review. Greg, I noticed you're wearing black. Are you in mourning?
We're not going to talk about that. It's college football season this week
Yes.
now.
Let's pivot to college football because I don't know what happened there. I didn't get to watch the end, but yeah,
All right.
we're just not going to talk. We do want to talk a little bit about because a couple weeks ago we talked about hurricanes. We're like, oh, didn't really hit produce too bad. Turns out, California fruit got hit pretty hard and way harder than a lot of the original reports that came out. We got an estimate from the California Table Grape Commission about some of the damage that they're seeing, and they had a certain percentage of the crop already harvested, and of the 75% of the crop left, because California grapes go into the winter, a third of those got wiped out. That's a pretty significant chunk.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to end up being the smallest crop in about 30 years, which is, I mean, that means some serious damage. And really most of the early reports we had where growers are going to assess what the damages are, and it's taken a couple weeks, and now we've got it. So I don't know if other areas will be able to fill that gap. It's might be a tight grape season this fall and winter.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, we see South America come on in, mid to late December, and that's usually around when California starts winding down. And there's a certain amount of grapes that go into coolers and sit for however long, and maybe don't get sold at a price that is that favorable for the growers. So anyone who still does have grapes, the end of this season might be a little tight, and the estimates require quite a bit of mathing. It's about 23% of the total original estimate, which was 96.9 million boxes, and now we're down to I think it was 75 million boxes. But that whole 33% of what's left kind of helps with the forecasting of, if you were expecting to have a decent grape on ad in late November, December, you might have to readjust some of the things that you're looking at. The good news is, I mean, there's lots of apples. So we got some news releases about apples this week, and I thought one that we got from Sweet Tango, which these are not Sweet Tangos, these are Honey Crisps. But my husband is the world's biggest Sweet Tango fan, and I thought it was interesting that a lot of the branded apples like Sweet Tango are trying to differentiate themselves in the market. I mean, Cosmic Crisp is going year round right now. I'm still eating Cosmic Crisp in the store. And they're last year's, and I know it, and they're still good. So all of these premium apples are really leveraging their market position and trying to make sure that people realize, hey, we're premium for a reason, and it's a crowded marketplace, and here's what our value prop here. So I think we're going to see a lot more from the apple growers trying to push their premiums, and the reasoning why, as the marketplace gets more crowded. So I thought that was a really interesting news release we got from them.
It can be really hard to separate yourself, and I appreciate that they're trying to do that and highlight how it's a different flavor profile and a premium product. So I hope they're successful with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting for me as a shopper to go into my local store, because my local store slots in like the premium apple of the week right in the front door. And one week it'll be Rave from Stamilt. A couple weeks ago it was Evercrisp. I'm a big fan of those. And so it seems like every week they're highlighting a different apple outside of the main category. And I see a lot of retailers do something like that to try to make sure that people understand that this is something different and new and exciting. And it just makes shopping more fun when you see, fun stuff promoted. So hopefully that's a win-win for everyone. We
When we
also have,
before
go.
we we can't leave the storm without mentioning that it did affect the tree fruit crop in addition to grapes in California. And we ran a guest piece from Ian LeMay, who's the president of the CFFA, talking basically asking retailers to partner with them and be I guess kind of be sympathetic to their situation this fall and winter. And I thought it was a really good message. And it even asked for some relief on some grading issues. And I think that's a good idea because when you have bad weather like that, I think the consumer has heard enough about some of these storms, and we're looking at more. I mean, even though the Florida stuff didn't affect the California crop, I think the consumer can understand. I'd rather have maybe a slightly smaller peach or plum or one with some wind scarring or something like that than no perfect peaches like for the rest
Yeah.
of this.
And I think in the overall conversation, having some relaxation on grading and standards is good for every season, but especially when we talk about storm damage. I mean, here in Texas, the grapefruit folks have to do the education piece all the time about how Texas citrus is often wind scarred. And that's just because the wind's always blowing. I mean, it doesn't stop around here, or at least down in the valley. And so when we talk about the overall thing about food waste, and yes, people buy with their eyes, and yes, the ugliest one usually gets left in the bin. But let's have a little education. Let's have a little partnership. Let's really try to move forward on some of this grading, to make sure that people understand that it doesn't have to be the prettiest peach in the bin to be the tastiest one. And I actually get that experience when I order direct from the grower from something like the Peach Truck. They have the education materials in there that say, hey, these may not be the prettiest ones out there, but they're going to be the tastiest. And I think most consumers understand that, but sometimes they have to be reminded
Yeah.
that maybe smell it instead of looking at it and let your nose decide instead.
Yeah,
So
consumer education is a thing that basically never stops. And
yeah.
even if the consumer has heard the message 5 times, it may not resonate until the sixth. So you never
It may
know.
not resonate until they see hurricane news on on
Right.
whatever way they consume news, and they go, oh yeah, I guess that would make things maybe a little smaller or a little uglier. But yeah, so it's a good reminder. And always, I love to see this kind of thing, is that, hey, let's make sure that we're partnering out here to get the best eating experience, but also make sure that the growers get decent returns.
Yeah, and bags are a good solution for that too.
Yep. We had some other big news in the Kroger Albertsons deal. I mean, this is just kind of like sneaking along. They had a social media post the other couple weeks ago with the CEOs of both Kroger and Albertsons talking about how great it's going to be for the market and the consumer. They kind of skipped over the vendor community on that one a little bit. But they had big news got leaked, or sources, or I mean, Bloomberg wrote something and everyone else ran with it, including us, of course, that C&S Wholesale Grocers is the first one in line to get up to, I mean, some estimates 250, maybe up to 400 stores up for divestiture, as Kroger and Albertsons move forward. If they want to get regulatory approval, they're going to have to divest some stores. But C&S, really?
We have no idea what the timeline is, unfortunately.
Yeah, these things can take years, although it kind of seems interesting timing to see that this is kind of hitting the news now. Maybe things are moving forward. Maybe things are getting it kind of puts a bug in the ear of whoever's looking over this, going, oh well, if they're gonna sell this big chunk of stores to one buyer, that was the one thing that was interesting to me. I mean, it gets messy when you try to divest all over here, which is what you recall when Albertsons divested a whole bunch of stores when the Safeway Albertsons. Hagen picked up 200 of them on the West Coast, instead of sending piecemeal out everywhere. I did notice that if they sell to C&S, it kind of blocks out Amazon from picking up dozens of stores and markets. Would Aldi be looking at, is Aldi a player in this now that they're trying to buy some Winn-Dixie stores? Although I
You
don't
don't
think
think
Aldi,
their hands full with that?
I think their hands are full right now. I think if this were happening 2 or 3 years from now and Aldi had proof of concept that they can go into a bigger box, maybe they would be a player in this. But who says C&S is going to keep all 400 of these stores? But it is worth noting that C&S was looking to pick up some business because of Ahold Delhaize is doing that self-distribution now. And a lot of those stores were serviced by C&S. So big moves in Kroger, Albertsons, but it's all, that's it. I think we've talked enough for this morning for the Produce Reporter Week in Review. If you are not getting the Produce Reporter newsletter, you need to go to producebluebook.com and sign up. I forgot that part.
Do it.
All right, it's early. I need some coffee with my plain green apple here. Well, you got bees. See, we're both agriculture. You're like, I didn't even know.